Hi, this is Kara. Welcome to Breaking Free Fridays, or welcome back if you've been following this series. It's so great to have you here. So today I was guided to talk about how do you see the world? This is such a really great question because so much of our experience in life is directly connected to the way that we actually see the world and how that roots back into our nervous system regulation as well as our beliefs and our thought patterns and all of those kinds of things, our identities, what we believe about ourselves. And some of what I thought would be really helpful to share is some insights around the idea of expanding what we define as our experience. Sometimes it's so easy to get locked into a black and white view of looking at things, or a more rigid way of seeing experiences, of seeing life. And when we do that, it actually locks us into more limitations just in general, but also in holding us back, keeping us small. So think about the idea of seemingly contradictory emotions happening at the same time, and realizing that that is something that we can embrace, and actually in our accepting of that and realization of more of the this experience, this emotion, and this one, that actually gives us greater freedom, greater richness in our life. I'll give you an example of where this can play out. So my dad passed away. It'll be 2 years ago in July. And at the point when he actually passed away, he had been suffering a lot. He was declining and in immense amounts of pain and suffering, and just it was his physical state of being was just really, really, well, obviously it was compromised, but just the nature of what he was dealing with was very intense in terms of his death process. And so when he ultimately took those final breaths, and I knew I was losing my dad in this physical relationship, in this dynamic, in this sense, I felt a lot of sadness, and that intensity of the loss, it hits really strongly. It's still a process, that grieving piece. And at the same time, I also felt peace, and I had some happiness as well, because I knew that my dad wasn't suffering anymore. He wasn't in immense pain anymore. And so those seemingly very different emotions and experiences, they were very real and happening at the same time. And these kinds of juxtapositions, they're common in life. Another example that's pretty common is if you're a parent, you'll probably relate to this, but as we watch our children grow, and we're guiding them, and so excited and have so much pride and joy as they reach those next milestones, as they experience that next level of life as they're continuing to grow. And at the same time, that can also bring on another sense of loss, because the dynamics of the relationship naturally shift as our children grow, which has a piece that's incredibly exciting and fulfilling and satisfying. And there can also be sadness in that, because there's a letting go of a dynamic that we had become accustomed to, that we really cherished at that time, and so the more that we can sit with this color that is an aspect of life, the more empowered we are, the broader our perspective is. Which brings me into a segue that I wanted to share as well on this topic related to how we see the world, and that really does have to do with our perspective. And we all come from a place of different experiences, different conditioning, different values, even though we all have fundamental needs that are across the board on human needs, our priorities related to those needs, and how they actually are uniquely applied to us individually can vary. And so our filters on the way that we experience life, they're different. And an analogy that I want to share that I think helps really bring this home, and I'll go back to my dad again. He was colorblind. It turns out about 1 in 12 men actually are colorblind. And according to the National Eye Institute, most people actually have variation in the way that we see colors. It's not exactly the same. So imagine my dad, who is colorblind, and to the degree that growing up, I remember having, kind of these chuckles about my mom actually laying out clothes for him, because who knows how he would have gone out of the house if he had picked out his combination of clothes. But the point in sharing that is that, his view and perception of the world was very different than mine or my mom's or my sister's. He didn't see the same things that we saw in the same, color spectrum and the same shading, any of that. And one of the things that I want to bring out in this example is, did that make him right? Did that make me right? My mom right? My sister right? No, it's not about right or wrong. It's really about understanding that we all bring a different perspective, a different richness to the way that we experience life, and our filter on how we experience different circumstances and even our interactions and relationships. The thing that's so powerful in recognizing this is that we can take our empowerment to another level when we really invite more curiosity around, tell me more about why you see things this way, as opposed to just assuming that somebody is coming from the exact same perspective that we are, because that's just not the case. And so the more that we do this inner work, the more that we naturally start to broaden our perspective and have higher, consciousness coming into play in how we interpret life. It's as though we go from a place of, looking through like this little spyglass versus, a Hubble telescope, and all the possibilities. The more that we grow and the more that we allow just different perspectives to exist and to really be curious about what those are. So one of the things that can be so powerful in that is letting go of our need to be right. And some of this is just, kind of innate human nature. And so the more that we can be curious, it just can be so powerful in the way we experience things and in our relationship dynamics. So keep that in mind and explore, see where you might uncover some insights in yourself about, maybe particular beliefs around the way that you are interacting or the way that you see things, and where you might be able to up level that and have a higher perspective, or allow more of a spectrum of differing things to exist at the same time, and being okay with that. Like that is part of the richness of life. It's really interesting. The more that we can expand into that truth. So I really invite you to explore that in your own world, and share comments about that. Let me know, how this is landing for you. And if this is helpful, please, share the videos with your friends and family. Another big piece that I want to bring in around how we see the world, it has to do with some of our beliefs on this is one of those concepts that's so wild because it fits into the realm of self-fulfilling prophecy. And this is a term that was coined, back in the late 1940s by a sociologist at the time. But the experience, the phenomenon, it's been, recognized since ancient Greek times and ancient times in India. And so it goes back a long way. But this is about the idea of, generalized, very rigid statements that come out of beliefs that we might have. For example, if we look at life as life is hard, or life is stressful, there's never enough time, like concepts that are more absolute in the way that we're framing them. And usually people come up with these based on their experiences, but it's like a chicken and an egg situation. So the more that we perpetuate energy behind and the thinking behind those beliefs, the more that keeps showing up in our world. Remember that our brain is always seeking truth. And so it does not distinguish like truth from the standpoint of like that higher perspective truth. It's like, okay, if we think something and we have that as a belief and that is true in our brain, then our brain is going to wire creating experiences that match to that truth so that there's congruence in our experience and in what our brain is patterning after. So if you do find yourself in a situation where you realize, oh gosh, I do say this a lot. I say, life is hard a lot. And you want to see more ease and flow, that is one of the first things that you can really do to kind of affect change there is really pay attention to your words and stop saying that. Find ways to reframe. And it's not about being counter to your experience. It's more about allowing something different to come into place. So if you're going from a place of, really perpetuating that like life is hard rhetoric, I bring that up as an example because that's something I dealt with for many years and was able to overcome that thought pattern and bust that belief. So going back to the example of the biggest way you can create change around that is to allow space for something different to be true. So it's like, I embrace letting life be easy. And so it's taking these steps towards a different truth and then allowing that to come into place. So there's also an energy component to all of this as well. We're living in a time where there is a lot of intensity, a lot of divisiveness and things like that. And so thinking about how you see the world, the more that we put energy behind positive things, behind unity, instead of focusing so much on the things that we are not wanting, our focus on what we don't want actually perpetuates it. It's like, what we resist persists, or the concept of, where we focus, we're creating energy behind that. So keep those things in mind too. And the more that we're able to really hold our center and be in a place of groundedness and that connectedness to ourselves, connectedness to our higher power, whatever that looks like for you, and really working on our own inner world. And if you're watching this video, I know that you are doing that. So I just honor you so much and celebrate you. And if you like this video, again, please subscribe, send a like, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. So let me know how this is landing and what your experience and in your exploration of this and your own belief systems. And here's to your next level of empowerment and a great week. Here's to breaking free and continuing to break free all the time. I am just sending you lots of love. So bye for now.